So COVID has affected our processes and as well as how we achieve products and how we make things happen this year. We're more spread out in rehearsals. We sanitize things more often. There are a lot more band programs, however, across the country who are still, even now in April, not able to play together. So I'm glad that we still at least get to play together because it's great for our kids, and we're very lucky and happy that we get those opportunities.
COVID affected choir this year because we had to, for a while, I got rid of the risers so that we could make sure that we were socially distanced in class so that we could still sing. COVID was spread through aerosols in the air, so being socially distanced was one of the big ways to prevent the spread of that. So we sing more distanced than we used to. A lot of my students still wear masks while they sing. But it has also meant that performances where we have other people, where we join forces with other choirs, have not happened this year.
So our marching band shows, since we still had football games, we performed at those, but we did not perform at any competitions this year. Those all got canceled. Our concerts have still been able to happen, but the festivals have all been canceled, and that's true for both semesters. Jazz, marching, concert. There's a lot of stuff we do outside of the school campus, and we've just not been able to do any of those this year. But again, thankfully, we've been able to do our own concerts here within the district.
Concerts have been relatively similar to what we have done in the past. We've just done little mini concerts instead of everybody singing on one big concert. We produce smaller in-person concerts so that the audience has plenty of opportunity to socially distance and so that it limits the amount of time that they are in their seats. For the singers, we can spread out and they don't have a holding area that they have to be in, sitting next to each other really tightly. So it's all just in one big, so like I said, smaller concerts. We've also limited our audience size, follow the school district's indoor event capacity levels. So we operate at 50%, which means that we ticket the events for choir because Truman is a smaller facility than Centene. We went ahead and ticketed them. They aren't charged. Nobody gets charged for a ticket, but it just gets you in the door.
We did need to record for some marching band stuff, and we've recorded for solo and ensemble, district solo and ensemble. And yeah, that was technology makes things a lot more difficult. I'm not the best technology guy, and that definitely made things much more difficult than telling people what time and what place to be for a performance.
We opted to not do anything where we had to record a performance this year. We postponed our winter concert so that we could have better rehearsals and a performance in person when we went to the hybrid schedule. We decided not to do Misha Solo Small Ensemble Contest or Large Ensemble Contest because both of those would be recorded things, and my students would prefer an in-person performance. So we just opted to bring somebody in and just do kind of our own thing here in Farmington, so that they could still perform live versus recording. We have had a couple of events that were optional events for students, all district choir and all state choir, and those auditions for those groups were recorded, but it was just an audio recording and it was submitted online and judges listened to it because those are blind auditions. So that was the only recording that we've done this year.
It is way harder to do our performances digitally. Normally when we do, for example, district solo and ensemble, normally we're at Festus High School and we perform just in a random English or math or science classroom, and the kids are there to perform and the judges there and their families or friends can watch, and that always makes kids a little bit nervous. But for some reason this year, in an empty room with just the phone, really heightened things and really freaked the kids out a lot more than normal. So I think some of their performances were hindered by that. But then on the other side, there's also some kids who prefer that.
I think in some ways it was easier because the nerve factor wasn't quite there. and you knew that you could redo the take if you wanted to. But in some ways, I think it was more difficult because as a musician, you're always looking for things that you can improve on. So listening to yourself is kind of hard to assess whether or not you had a good audition or feel good about it. I think there were pros and cons, things that were easier, things that were also harder.
So the answer to that question is yes. Everything has basically been canceled. Again, all of our in-district concerts and performances have still happened, but anything that we would normally travel outside of the district for, those have all been canceled. So, but next year, things are looking better. We think we're going to still plan on going to all of our marching band competitions and everything, even if we just have to wear a mask when we're on the bus or when we're on that other school's campus. That way we can still get to perform, because it showed me this year how much these performances really do mean to myself, the rest of the staff, and the kids. So we're definitely going to be performing next year.
We didn't necessarily cancel anything. It just got moved to a different format or postponed. So a lot of our events that happened in the fall were postponed until second semester. For instance, All District Choir, as I mentioned before, and they went to an online audition instead of an in-person audition. So we recorded auditions and sent them in for that. That group ended up being a paper group to avoid, meaning that they still got the honor of making the choir, but they just didn't have a performance. So I suppose that's a little bit different, even though we did still have an all-district choir, and we still had an all-state choir. They did not get to perform. A lot of our conference events that usually take place in the fall have been moved to this semester, so we're kind of in the middle of that. And they looked a little bit different. We didn't do any big group singing or mixing of singers, so it was more isolated. We did still give a concert, but we were isolated. It was just us singing. So to allow for social distancing and cross-contamination between communities was not as risky. Not a lot happened or didn't get to happen that normally happens. It's just it's looked different than in years past.